This is the Peaceful Revolutionary coming at you from Ottawa, Canada again. Pretty excited today. I'm always excited, of course, about something, but I love to talk about technology. And you know what? When we talk about the future, like a positive future, what I call paradism, this is something that was coined by Rael as a term, essentially that meaning that we're creating our own paradise through technology, eliminating the economic system so that everybody has the basics equally, using and that is achieved mostly using automated systems and new technologies. So I'm always looking at new technologies, how things get automated, and how we can actually today lodge and feed everybody in the world and go into the long expected leisure-based economy that we could enter today if all the powers that be, including ourselves, are willing to make the jump. Obviously, it won't be a drastic thing, even though I would love if it would be drastically go from this current system to something that we where everybody can feel at peace and enjoy technology and enjoy living our passions instead of working for money and all that jazz. But so the last few weeks I've been following automated self-driven cars. And there's a lot of stuff going on with automation, including robotics, artificial intelligence around the world. But I just wanted to give you an update today about the self-driven car, because, I mean, most of you are probably aware of the Google cars. They've been around since 2009. Sorry, they've been around since 2009 approximately. And they've been on the road in testing in Nevada and California since 2012. And there's a few states in the U.S. where self-driven cars in a test, under test conditions, can be driven on public roads. Nevada, there's California, there's Florida, I believe Michigan, and maybe a couple other states. So not many, but there's a few. And it's been pretty exciting to follow, especially Google, who's essentially started it all, or at least is more public about it, to following it and see how they perform and how many, millions of kilometers they've been driving, and only about 14 accidents or so up until last year. All of which were not the responsibility of the automated systems. Now, of course, they don't drive these cars in the different geographies in the winter time or in when it's raining, fully automated, because there are concerns and there's still some kinks to work out. But in a rough sense, from what I've been reading and following, is they expect to work out all these kinks, as well as some of the detection issues they've been having, like as far as debris and discerning, if a police officer is waving you by or saying you to stop, temporary traffic conditions, all these things that we as humans process that are not usual, as well, like cones on the street and things like that. They're going to work these things out, according to Google, by 2020. And what's really cool is that this is all for public transportation, a little bit like changing taxis into personal vehicles in a sense, because right now, like, you call a taxi or use an app to get a taxi to your door, and you tell them where to go. The automated self-driven cars would probably be mostly the same way. You don't necessarily need your own car. There could be a fleet for a neighborhood or a city, different parked in different locations, and you essentially call the car over, a little bit like a taxi, but there's no taxi driver. So you could have like a very nice, let's say, subscription model in your city with self-driven cars, and you just call a car, you're paying X a month. Maybe there's insurance overcharge for the fleet itself or something like that, because you may not need insurance yourself if the car is completely driven on its own and you can't take over, for example, which is where these things seem to go towards, even with the most recent Google cars. But that's really exciting, because instead of paying let's say $500, $600, $700 a month for gas and the actual car itself and insurance, all this stuff, maybe you'll be paying $250, and just you get just as good a use into individual car transportation. And you don't have to worry about parking. You don't have to worry about driving either. So you can kind of chill, relax, play some games, do some work in the back of the car. This is all really cool. And coming in 2020, now there are other entrants that came in a little bit after Google, which I was not aware of, all over, for these same kind of usage, like the taxi-like type of usage of cars, and those are Mercedes-Benz, Delphi Automotive. These are the North American entrants. Well, actually, Mercedes is not North American. Delphi does a lot of stuff here. Anyhow, so internationally, Nissan, Audi, Bosch, and even Nvidia has been. Nvidia, the computer hardware company, has been setting out a fleet, and I know Ford as well has a fleet now, and all of them are basically saying a little bit the same story. They expect to work out kinks to get this fully out by 2020 or 2025, depending on who you're talking to. So fairly soon. Now, this is all taking into account, figuring out with the legal aspects of it with the government and the insurance companies. This is already has been, in lobby and being worked out primarily by Google, since it's a forerunner over here in North America. So they're figuring, with the lawmakers, they're figuring things out as we go. So when 2020 arrives and the technology is there, the legal will all be worked out. It's all the same track. It seems to be all moving in the same direction, which is really exciting. So those are for these types of cars that are meant for just a few people. Maybe some of them are SUV size, so you can carry stuff, and a few people, like a whole family, for example. But also, if you look at the Netherlands, they have what they call, give me a sec here. They have the WePod, which is self-driving, driven car, essentially. It's been running for a little while, driverless, on a campus, and it's been used. Sorry, it's been used at the Wageningen University for quite a while. To ferry students from one place to another. And it's a 6-person cabin in this case. It has a wheelchair lift and has about a range of 100 kilometers. All these cars are electrical, as far as I know, by the way. So the computer knows when it needs to charge, and then it kind of goes around, which works really well with a parking lot kind of system, and a city-based transit system. So not necessarily at this point designed for very long distances, like between cities in North America. But anyway, the WePod, the expectation is that it's going to go to public roads. So this is essentially a mass transit car. Of course, 6 people. It's not big like a bus. It's fairly small, but it's going to go into public roads and traffic this year, as far as I can see. And it's going to start being max speed at 25 kilometers an hour, so it's mostly like very residential, like university campus-like areas, but where there's pedestrians all around. But its maximum speed is about 40 kilometers an hour, so very residential. But still, in the Netherlands, it is already out there in the public, whereas in North America, in normal roads, it's expected to be 2020, where all the kinks are being figured out. So that's one example, the WePod in Netherlands, where it's already going forward. There's also the UltraPod, which is meant to run next year or this year in the London borough of Greenwich, so inside the city of London. And this is, again, one of those vehicles that is mass transit vehicle. It's looks a little bit like a train. I'm going to show you. Here's an image of it. And it's been already in operation for the past 5 years almost, carrying 1.5 million passengers. across the facility of the, I believe this is again an airport, yeah, the Heathrow Airport, um, and it eliminated the need of 70,000 bus journeys every year. So that's significant. I mean, it's because it's eliminated around 100 tons of CO2 emissions by using this technology versus the bus, and so that's a lot, you know. So that's quite good for the environment, and so there's a lot of trust that's been given. Now these cars are more like trams; they're like on rails. Compared to the WePod and all the other cars that we've been talking about, they are like on wheels and they follow roads without being on monorail systems. But I mean, this is kind of saying this is a start of regulatory systems moving forward. A whole bunch of companies spending a lot of R&D now, not only Google and a few others. Like there's almost a dozen of them now around the world that are going out and putting these things in the public, or at least on the road, pun intended, on the road to go onto public roads where there's pedestrians and all sorts of things going on, and based on the data, I mean there's still some danger spots like inclement weather conditions that they need to check out for, um, but you know, very 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 small amount of accidents, and it's mostly the automated cars being re-rendered by other, you know, manual drivers that aren't paying that much attention, or maybe they're looking at the cars, but there's always a radar up top. Maybe they're distracted. Who knows? So very very cool stuff. So look forward to see some of these automated self-driven vehicles soon. I know I want to have access to one. I don't like driving. And you know, a taxi is fairly expensive, and of course, the bus has its advantages and disadvantages. Still love mass transit, of course, but if I had access to a car like this, you know, for sure, that would be awesome. And probably way less expensive than taxi for sure. And I can imagine shortly after buses and full trains, like big mass transit vehicles being fully automated as well. And all of this, like some of these, I mean, they've already, since there is a fleet in some of these cases, they've already kind of connected the cars to a cloud-based service so that they can be synchronized to pick up passengers different places, a little bit like a dispatcher, which is something that's not that you know, it's not trivial, but it's been done before for trains in Europe. Actually, I know a company that did that for a bunch of trains, I think in Germany. So we've done that before. So coordinating a fleet of self-driven cars would be like tremendous in getting the roads free of all sorts of vehicles that are unneeded or just held by one passenger. Also, traffic, like can you imagine? Traffic is no longer much of an issue because the main issue of the stop and go of traffic jams. Of course, you have occasional accident where there's a stop and there's a bottleneck. But when there's traffic and no bottleneck, the reason there's a lot of stop and go is because humans brake too much and accelerate too much, and it creates this kind of stoppage over a certain amount, like a kilometer or two of the actual where the traffic is located. And it's been studied like many years ago that if it was a computer that would be able to see where all the cars and control all the flow, you wouldn't have any traffic in those cases at all. So we'd get probably fewer vehicles on the street. At least I'm hoping so, because people would be using more multi-individual vehicles, being driven with other people sitting in the seats, and you'd have all this flow of traffic. Like the computer would know take street A versus street B, because street B there's already enough cars in it. It would know where the traffic is and take side routes, all that nice stuff where it would eliminate a lot of problems with the roads. And we can also anticipate perhaps even some of these cars being flight enabled. like horizontal, like Hornets, the military airplanes that can take off horizontally. Why not? So you can take advantage of some of the air above the cities to go across town as well. And all coordinated, of course, so that there are no drivers to crash into you. The AI or the server or the computer cloud sees every car. There's no chance of hitting somebody else, for example, or hitting something that you wouldn't expect, or a lot fewer chances compared to if it was a human driven. So all sorts of exciting things coming up. I'm really liking this. So I'm going to keep an eye on it for sure, and you can bet that I'll be one of the first users of those, and I hope you guys also are going to do that. Environmentally, it's a plus. Traffic, way fewer incidents of accidents and deaths and fatalities and maimings and injuries on the road, which is super awesome. The cars themselves can be smaller, so you got a space savings, fewer vehicles most likely on the street. I mean, the advantages go on and on and on. And for those of you who like to drive, I'm sure there's gonna be a way for you guys to go and still drive in some locations, or with the self-driven vehicles. Why not? Maybe like iRobot, if you remember that movie, Will Smith, everybody's using automated vehicles, but you can always switch to manual and you can start driving the vehicle. So why not? Personally, I don't think that's a good idea, but I don't like driving, so maybe I'm biased. All right, so this is a nutshell view of our future with way less emissions and self-driven car. Hope you liked it, and I'm gonna do some more of those as usual when things kind of exciting and kind of come to a head where there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'll let you guys know. All right. Meantime, I'll keep the peace going. Keep meditating, keep thinking about really good things and revolution in a peaceful way. Change things for the better, man. Have a good one. Ciao.